Welcome back to the CS Podcast presented by the NFL Draft Bible, NFLDraftBible.com, bringing you the names that you need to know first since 2002. Just wrapped up the 2017 NFL Draft this past weekend. And, of course, a special thanks to Aaron Lemming of BearReport.com for joining the show earlier. Now we're going to jump to where the NFL Draft was held at, Philadelphia. And who else to talk Philadelphia Eagles and all things NFL in general than Jovan Alford of TotalSportsLive.com and the Philadelphia Tribune. Jovan, how's it going? You're at the NFL Draft. What was the atmosphere like there in Philadelphia? We've heard nothing but great things. You were there. You live in Philadelphia. How did the city embrace it?
Oh, the city was great during the draft, first and foremost. But before I begin, I'm so happy to be back on the CS podcast. It's been like a minute since we've done one of these, and why not do one of these and talk about an amazing NFL draft? I had to say, just from not only the atmosphere but just the players that were picked. It was a really good draft, and like you said, it was held in Philly, and I have to say, Philly did an amazing job. I think the set that they built, was amazing. In Chicago, because it was held outdoors there too, just to see how they build these things in kind of a quick fashion, how they build these things, and then when they put them together, how majestic it looked. And therefore, like in Philadelphia, how they kind of had it set up, the theater set up, like almost inside the art museum. Like that was crazy. And then you had the players when they get called coming down the art museum steps. With fans, it's just amazing. It was amazing atmosphere, amazing venue. Like I said, the fans were excellent. Not just talking about Eagles fans, NFL fans across the board were amazing. And everybody heard there was no arrest, which was excellent. We always like to hear that, especially in big time events like this. You don't want to hear people acting a fool or getting arrested, because everybody pretty much is to have a good time. It's family friendly. Let's just say it like that. It's family friendly when you got the NFL draft experience. It's family friendly. But it was just amazing, Chris. I remember the first day on that Thursday when we were leaving, work to walk, because that's where we work at. We're like not too far away from the Parkway. Actually, we're like 10 to 15 minutes away. So we just literally like walked from the Tribune to the draft. And as we got like closer, like we hit 16th Street for people that know. Listen, so we hit 16th Street, we just walk up and we hit Arch. And once we start hitting Arch and turn towards the Parkway, you just see all these, literally, because you see all these NFL fans and like all different jerseys, using Cowboys jerseys, Eagles jerseys, Cleveland Browns jerseys, Denver Broncos, just everywhere. Any team, a dude dressed up in Texans gear wearing all red. It was just amazing.
You spotted out the first Las Vegas Raiders jersey out there.
No, I haven't. I didn't spot one of those out, which I was very disappointed. But I did when I was leaving there on Thursday night from day one. I swear to you not, I saw Torrey Holt when I was crossing the street to go home to get on the sub. I swore that was him, because he had on a Rams polo. And he had on glasses, so I'm pretty sure that was Torrey Smith. But I didn't stop and say Torrey Holt, excuse me. But I didn't say hello to him because I was crossing the street and I wasn't trying to get hit by a car. So yeah.
Torrey Holt. Well, again, I'm sure there was lots of sights and sounds in Philadelphia this past weekend, including a Torrey Holt. And you know what? I'll tell you what, he goes down as one of my favorite wide receivers in NFL history. So. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad to hear a huge success, even in your eyes. We've heard it from the general public and, some of the big-time guys as Commissioner Roger Goodell. And I know Ron Jaworski has really been harping on it, Adam Schefter. And that zero arrest thing, I don't think that's anything to sneeze at or to kind of just gloss over. I think that will really help the city when they try to win back the NFL draft for 2018. I got to think Philadelphia is going to be in the running for it again. We haven't heard a single bad thing about Philadelphia and how they held the NFL draft. So that's going to be interesting. And let's get right to it, Jovan. Overall thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles draft. I really like what they did overall, and of course with their first pick, which a lot of Eagles fans, at least from what I've heard, aren't a big fan of. Of course, they had the 14th overall pick. and took defensive end Derek Barnett out of Tennessee. This is a guy that broke Eagles legend Reggie White's Tennessee sack record, and of course he played in the SEC, the same conference as Myles Garrett. And it wasn't Myles Garrett who led the SEC this past season in sacks and tackles for loss. It was this guy, the number 14 overall pick, Derek Barnett. And in my opinion, the tape certainly validates this pick. He was certainly a top 14 player in this draft. Why are Eagles fans upset at this pick? And in your eyes, was this a smart move by the Philadelphia Eagles to upgrade their pass rush and take Barnett with the overall pick?
I think it was an excellent move to pick up a guy like Derek Barnett, because you're thinking there and you're sitting there and you're watching how the draft board falls. You've seen it. We saw 3 quarterbacks go in the top 12. We saw 3 wide receivers go in the top 10. We saw 2 running backs go in the top 10. So you're thinking, the way this is falling, a lot of playmakers are going off the board, especially for Eagles. All 3 wide receivers go off the board. So they're thinking, okay, they're not getting the John Rosses, Mike Williams, or Corey Davis of the world. So that's our wide receiver for now. Running back McCaffrey, Fournette, both going top 10. You're like, okay, now we ain't got no running back. Where do we go to now? You start looking at the defensive side of the ball, so you start seeing cornerbacks slowly go off the board. Who was it? We had Jamal Adams, the safety, go to the New York Jets, and then you're seeing with Adams going to the Jets, you're thinking, maybe Marshawn Lattimore, maybe he might fall to 14. Which is kind of crazy, Chris, because remember when Mel Kiper did his first mock draft, I think he had Lattimore as like 6 to the Jets. So you're thinking, how is he falling this far? But it was just a weird draft like that. So he's starting to fall, but then New Orleans does the right thing finally and picks him up. Smart move by New Orleans. Thank God you're getting some defense here. But your board starts falling. You're thinking, all right, 13, 14, 13. You're thinking, maybe we'll get Hassan Reddick, the local kid from Camden, played at Temple. Maybe you get him. It's not a bad move, but he goes to Arizona. So then finally you get a guy like Derek Barnett, who I think it's a great pick. He fills a need that the Eagles have, which is a bona fide pass rusher on the other side of Brandon Graham. Because I think people watched the Eagles last year, there was no other guy on the other side of Brandon Graham. It was pretty much Vinny Curry and Marcus Smith. And Vinny Curry didn't take that step forward as many people thought he would after getting that contract extension. He didn't take that next step. And Marcus Smith has pretty much been a bust. Let's just keep it real. So Brandon Graham's getting no help on the other side. They have a guy in Barnett who is a very ferocious and vicious defensive end. Like, the dude he's nasty. He has a high motor. He's physical, and I think that's definitely what they need on the other side with him, because people got to look at the grand scheme of things in this. Why I know some Eagles fans are upset with it, because you're like, oh my God, they picked Barnett. They're reaching because they're drafted for need instead of best player available on the board. O.J. Howard keeps sitting there. They should have drafted O.J. Howard, the tight end out of Alabama, and you're sitting there thinking, so what are you talking about? Well, why do you need a tight end when you have Zach Ertz? But people in this day and age, the notion of analytics and sports, they think of you draft for BPA rather than drafting for need, which it depends on the case. But in the Eagles, you draft for need here. You get your defensive end because you got to look at the grand scheme things of what they're trying to do with what Jim Schwartz is trying to do. Jim Schwartz is trying to create a defense that's going to get after you, a front four that's going to get after you. And he did that. The Eagles got Fletcher Cobb. They lost Benny Logan, but then they replaced Benny Logan with a trade with the Ravens to get Tim Jernigan. You got Brandon Graham on one side, then you got Chris Long and Derek Barnett. So you got to look at what the Eagles are trying to do in the grand scheme of things. Is they're going to try to put pressure on the quarterback as much as possible.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't know if there's a guy that's happier in Philadelphia than Jim Schwartz, especially after this past weekend, after the defensive-heavy draft of the Philadelphia Eagles. And you already touched on it a little bit, Jovan. Looking at some of the edge players that Philadelphia already has, you already touched on Brandon Graham. And then from there, it's kind of like the other guys. Brandon Graham and the other guys, you got Vinny Curry, you got Marcus Smith. They signed Chris Long in the offseason. What exactly do you think will be asked out of Barnett in year one? I know we're just a few days removed from the NFL draft. It's kind of tough to say now. We haven't even hit rookie minicamp. But what do you think, as of right now, will be asked of Barnett in year one? Will he be a starter opposite side of Brandon Graham? Will he be a rotational player? will him and maybe Chris Long and Curry all share snaps opposite side of Graham? What are you thinking?
I think that he will eventually become a starter over time. I think right now he'll be a rotational guy, which is fine. So you don't want to throw him in the fire as this is your guy. Mm-hmm. But like how some newspapers say, he's Minister Defense 2.0. Like, you don't want to put that pressure on the kid. You know, let him be a rotational piece and, you know, rotate with a Chris Long or rotate with a Vinny Curry. You know, just be able to have fresh bodies out there, because that's what the NFL is becoming these days. Teams are rotating the defensive lines like it's a NASCAR pit stop, you know, changing tires. They're just, yep, all right, just move them in, move them out. So I think that's what he's going to be. I think he's going to be a rotational guy going forward. I think if you can get 5 or 6 sacks out of him this season, that will be impressive for him as a rookie. I think that would be outstanding if you can get that out of him. So I think right now he's going to be a rotational guy, which is fine. I think that's perfect for him because, you know, the Eagles, they do envision him, you know, as what he said, Barnett said in his press conference Thursday night. He said that Jim Schwartz, and the coaching staff, they compared him to a young T. Sizzle, to a young Terrell Suggs, and that's a very high compliment of them. So if they envision that in him, then they got a player on their hands.
Absolutely. I mean, Terrell Suggs, like you said, not too shabby at all. And, you know, I know it wasn't the sexy pick taking Barnett at number 14 overall. I know Philadelphia fans may not be too happy, but, hey, look at it this way. The 2 toughest things to find in the NFL is a quarterback and a pass rusher, and you need both to succeed. Yeah. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles were smart to make this move, especially like you said. I mean, their defensive line is already looking pretty good with Fletcher Cox there in the middle. You guys got Timmy Jernigan, Brandon Graham. Now you just need that one other guy, and you got 3 you got 2 other veterans that have already shown that they can do some damage in the NFL. They can wreak havoc in the backfield in Vinny Curry and Chris Long. And now you got a young guy in a first-round pick in Derek Barnett, who in college was relentless and really unstoppable in the SEC. And now he now the expectations are very high for him. But you got the veterans and you got the talent to kind of bring them along. I won't say slowly, but, you know, I mean, eventually this is going to be one of the starting defensive linemen on that Eagles defensive line without a doubt. Now, the Eagles addressed their needs in the secondary, Jovan, with their 2nd and 3rd round picks by taking Sidney Jones out of Washington and Rasul Douglas out of West Virginia. Jones was considered really a first-round lock, a top 15 pick before tearing his Achilles at his pro day. You guys get him in the 2nd round. And then with Douglas, you get a great size, 6'2", 210-pound cornerback, very aggressive, very physical. Is there any doubt as of right now that Douglas will be starting on the outside come week 1? I mean, obviously he has to earn his stripes, but do you see that as a strong possibility, Rasul Douglas, the corner out of West Virginia, starting for Philadelphia week 1 regular season?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he will be starting in week one. I mean, he's coming into a situation where the Eagles do not really have a lot of depth at the cornerback position. Obviously, they released Leodis McKelvin early in the offseason, and he lost Nolan Carroll to the Dallas Cowboys. So they're already down to 2 starters, which is okay because what did those guys really bring to the table as starting cornerbacks last year? You could have easily put out 2 traffic cones out there, and they probably could have did a better job stopping opposing team wide receivers. But I digress. But I think Douglas will step in and be an instant starter because, I mean, think about it. You just gave it size, Chris. 6'2", 210? That's ridiculous. I mean, the other cornerback who was around that size, you're maybe looking at Akello Witherspoon, who was like 6'3", 198. So Douglas is a little heavier, but like you said, he's aggressive and physical. And what does Jim Schwartz like? His defense, aggressive, physical players. So I think he's definitely going to start on the outside and begin the season, and then you're going to figure out who's going to be on the other side. Are you going to put Patrick Robinson on the outside, or maybe you say, okay, maybe put Patrick Robinson on the slot and move Jalen Mills to the outside, which is possibly not a bad idea either because the Eagles' secondary is pretty bad at the cornerback position. But Leodis McKelvin and Nolan Carroll, how much worse can it get with those 3? I'm just saying. So I think Douglas will start. And this will start to begin the season without question, unless he gets injured or he just totally doesn't look prepared for the NFL.
Yeah, you know, I would argue that cornerback was probably the Eagles' biggest need. And to get a guy like Sidney Jones in the second round, I got to think Philadelphia is really excited about that once he comes back nice and healthy. And then, of course, in the third round, getting Douglas, like I said, a very big physical cornerback. Things are starting to turn around there, it looks like, at least for the secondary there in Philadelphia. Now, in the fourth round, shortly after the Chicago Bears took the 5'7" Tariq Cohen, the Philadelphia Eagles drafted the 5'9" running back out of San Diego State, Donnell Pumphrey, who, by the way, is the FBS all-time leading rusher, which isn't anything to kind of gloss over. But a lot of people do question whether or not Pumphrey can translate to the NFL game, whether or not he can have success in the NFL game, whether he can withstand the beating in the NFL game. Jovan, what type of player do you think the Eagles selected in the fourth round in Pumphrey? And is this a guy that can have a long NFL career, or is this a wasted pick, as some kind of said it might be when this player was chosen?
I think it's not a wasted pick because you see how the NFL, they love getting those small type running backs. Look what the Patriots have done with Deion Lewis or with a James White, or perfect example, Darren Sproles. Look how Darren Sproles has changed the game when it comes to running backs his size. He has shown the NFL that, hey, you can be this size, be an effective player, make plays, and still have a long career, which he has. So I think for the Eagles and Pumphrey, I think they get a dynamic running back. I've been talking about Pumphrey since last summer. We're talking about Pumphrey because this dude is he's amazing. And like you said, for him to be at his size and have the number of carries that he's had over his college career is just crazy. Because I think he has over 1,000 carries in his 4-year career and back-to-back 300-plus carry seasons as a junior and a senior, 2,000 rushing yards this year. I mean, the dude, he can play. And people might think, well, can he take the beating or whatever? The dude just didn't balance out with everything outside at San Diego State. He had to run inside between the tackles, too. So I'm not worried about him. I don't think it's a wasted pick. I do think for the Eagles, they're not going to just use him primarily as a runner. I think they're going to do what they do with Darren Sproles, is that try to get this guy as many touches as you can in space. So I envision that maybe you try to get him maybe 10 to 15 touches a game. So maybe you try to get him 10 carries and 5 catches. Or the inverse, 10 catches and 5 carries. Whatever you try to do, try to get this guy in space, because we've seen over his career what can he do when he gets space. He can take it a distance and break a game wide open. So I like the pick, even though I wish I had Tariq Cohen, but I'll let y'all have him. Or the Chiefs taking my guy, Kareem Hunt, I'll let them have him. So I can't complain with Donnell Pumphrey. I think he's going to be fun to watch, and he'll get to learn from a guy in Darren Sproles who's been doing it as long as he has at his size. So I think it's a perfect thing for the Eagles.
Yeah, and a perfect fit for Pumphrey, like you said, to be able to learn from a guy who has had success for many years in the league. And many people have counted him out many times in Darren Sproles, and he's had himself quite the career, especially when you think about coming in. Not too many people really gave him much of a chance at all. So to be able to learn from a vet from him and kind of, I don't know, maybe take the car keys away from Darren Sproles. I mean, he's kind of getting up there in age now a little bit. But as many times as I see these smaller running backs like a Donnell Pumphrey or Tariq Cohen that were both drafted this past weekend, and I like to throw the comparison to a Darren Sproles or to a Danny Woodhead. You know, the Garrett Wolfs of the world always pop up in my mind too, where it's like, maybe there's a chance, and with every player there's a chance that it doesn't work out. But I think Pumphrey, what he did in college. Again, the all-time leading rusher in all the FBS history, that's nothing to sneeze at, and I'm glad he got a shot. I'm glad he got drafted, and I think this is probably, at least off the top of my head, this is probably the best situation for him, is to land in Philadelphia. Nobody's going to ask him to be the starter right away. I don't know if anybody's really even expecting him to be a starting caliber running back at any point in his career. If he turns out to be one, great. But like we've kind of touched on, I mean, maybe a Darren Sproles type career, change of pace back, kind of do it all kind of running back, I think that's kind of what you see in a Donnell Pumphrey, the fourth-round pick that the Eagles selected this past weekend. Now, from running back to wide receivers, Jovan, last season you could have made a solid argument that Philadelphia had the worst wide receiver corps in the league. Now they have guys like Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith to go with, of course, Jordan Matthews and Nelson Aguilar, who I got to think is going to be fighting for his job come mini camp and training camp. And then over the weekend they selected Mac Hollins, another big body wide receiver for Wentz, and Shelton Gibson out of West Virginia. How big of an upgrade are we talking here at the wide receiver position? And do you expect to see a better Carson Wentz in year two with these weapons they're surrounding him with? I mean, I gotta think the easy answer is yes, of course. But is it really that simple?
It is simple, but then it isn't simple. So let me first, talk about, his weapons he got. You sounded a little disappointed when you said Alshon Jeffries.
Yeah, I'm a little salty.
It's okay. It's okay. He only signed for 1 year, so hey, he had a bigger deal from Minnesota to try to take the 1 year with the Eagles. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's an overall upgrade because you look at it last season, your starting wide receivers were Jordan Matthews on the outside, Nelson Aguilar, Dorial Green-Beckham. Not the greatest group of wide receivers, even though you hoped that Dorial Green-Beckham would try to replicate what he did as a rookie in Tennessee. That didn't happen. So what the Eagles do, they get Alshon, big playmaker, big wide receiver on the outside, and then they get Torrey Smith, a veteran who can stretch the field, which the Eagles have problems, and can get open. Both of those guys can get open. Eagles wide receivers had a problem with that last season getting open. So then in the draft, they come back and say, you know what? We addressed defense in the first 2 days. Let's try to get some offensive guys. So then, like you said, they get Mac Hollins, who's a big guy. I think he's like 6'4", 220. And he's a special teams, and first and foremost, he's a special teamer. And I think he was the special teams captain at UNC. So that already gives him a notch in his belt in making this roster. Because the Eagles have one of the better special teams units in the NFL, so it already gives him a bonus that if he can play special teams and do it well, he'll make this roster and see it filled often. And then not only that, he can catch the football. He can also get deep and stretch the field. I think he had a career average of 24.8 yards per catch or something like that in his junior year. I think that was a career high or something of that nature. So I think if Hollins can come in, play special teams well, and then also get on the field and make plays, I think, to be honest with you, I think he can take Dorial Green-Beckham's spot because there will be no need for DGB if DGB can't perform because DGB is not going to play special teams. Hollins can give you special teams, and if he can give you a better offensive production than Green-Beckham, then no need for him. Then when you got a guy in Shelton Gibson who's a bona fide speedster. I mean, this dude's fast. He's been compared to what Deshaun Jackson used to do at Cal, which is just leave guys in the dust and stand still. And he'll just catch the bombs, and that's a beautiful thing. So he can possibly learn. He'll definitely be able to learn from Torrey Smith. Shoot, he might even replace Torrey Smith because Smith's technically on a 1 year deal. So if they got rid of him after this season, it really wouldn't kill their pockets. So he could technically be Torrey Smith's replacement in 2018 if Smith doesn't pan out. Or he can push a guy like Nelson Aguilar. Because this is Nelson, Eagles, they'll have a decision to make next year in the picking up his option. So we'll see what they do with that. But I think it's an overall upgrade for the Eagles. They did a great job of giving Wentz weapons, that people can't use the excuse coming into this season that, Wentz played bad because he didn't have no weapons. No, Wentz has all the weapons at his disposal. What he has to do now and what Doug Peterson and Frank Wright and Joe DeFilippo have to do now is make the game easier, meaning depend on the running game, but also Wentz has to make good decisions with the football. He can't force the ball down the field with a gunslinger mentality, even though that's great to have. You can't force the ball down the field if the play's not there. You can't have those ugly interceptions as we've seen against the Giants, the Vikings. I know there was other games where he had some pretty ugly interceptions. And he's just got his footwork. We always know with a quarterback, it's not about his arm. It's not about his arm mechanics, it's about that footwork. If a quarterback's footwork breaks down, then that throw is not going to be good. But if Wentz can not get happy feet and just deliver good balls, and he's going to have a good offensive line of own, then he should not have no problem this season in getting the football to any of those guys on the football field.
Hey, well said, well said. Again, without a doubt, an upgrade to the wide receiver position and really an upgrade to the entire team. I think Philadelphia did a fantastic job this past weekend in the 2017 NFL Draft, again, addressing needs on defense and on offense at running back and wide receiver. Cannot go wrong with that. Lastly, Jovan, one of my favorite parts, one of your favorite parts, I think I can say for you as well, is after the draft, seeing where all the undrafted free agents wind up. And, I think Philadelphia did a pretty nice job with that as well. I mean, I think their highest paid undrafted free agent is Corey Clement, the running back out of Wisconsin. You guys also got Greg Ward Jr., the quarterback turned wide receiver out of Houston. And then today we learned that Gerard Evans, the quarterback out of Virginia Tech, is also one of the undrafted free agents that ended up signing with Philadelphia following the NFL Draft. And then, of course, there's a bunch of guys that are going to be trying out during rookie minicamp, including a couple of quarterbacks, Dakota Prukop, the former Montana State quarterback, then, of course, spent last year at Oregon, kind of underwhelmed, and, again, is just getting a tryout. Many people expect him to turn into a draft pick, possibly, spending that last year at Oregon. And then they got Dane Evans, the Tulsa quarterback, who I also like as well. Those are a couple of the tryout players. Anyways, before we let you go, any undrafted free agents or any tryout players that will be participating in rookie minicamp, any of those names really catch your eye? Anybody we should keep an eye out on come rookie minicamp?
Definitely. I would say Corey Clement. A lot of Eagles fans are really loving Corey Clement. He's a local guy. Technically, he's from New Jersey, so a lot of people are rooting for him. So I think a lot of people are want to see if he'll make the roster because, he's a physical running back. But the issue is his durability. Can he stay healthy? That's going to be the key for him. And knowing what the Eagles running back situation is, it's a running back by committee type of thing. So maybe he could slip in. I'm not saying he's going to make the 52-man roster because the Eagles already got 4 running backs right there with Ryan Matthews if they keep him. So maybe he becomes a good guy that you stash on the practice squad, which is nothing wrong with that. Stash him on the practice squad. Somebody gets hurt. Boom. You bring him up. So that's one guy. Another guy I'm looking out for, and you know about him pretty well, Chris, so that is Billy Brown, the wide receiver / tight end out of Shepherd. I mean, the dude is huge, man. That's a big target. I mean, shoot, Carson Wentz already has Alshon Jeffrey and Mac Hollins. Just throw Billy Brown out there as a tight end. I mean, just talk about height. And I think the thing for Brown, and you might agree, Chris, is that he was able to dominate. We see this with a lot of small schools. I think we're able to dominate their talent. And, if they were playing D2 or D3 or NAIA or even FCS, they were able to dominate their talent level that they were playing with. But
and
can they
adjust? Week at the Shrine game as well against other FCS players. He had a big week at the Shrine game. Quickly. I think Billy Brown, he'll be best suited as tight end with the Philadelphia Eagles. Brent Selleck, obviously, I got to think his time is coming up soon. And then, playing opposite side of, maybe right behind Zach Ertz. Yeah, good one on Billy Brown. I don't know how I forgot about that one. That's one that I really like as well, Jovan.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like you said, you followed him and followed the small school guys a lot more than I have, so you're pretty keen to this stuff. And like I said, it's going to be how can you guys adjust? If they can adjust to the NFL speed and the competition, then he should be fine. He's another guy who may not make the 53, but if you can luckily stash him on your practice squad, that's a great ad. And then another guy I'm looking out for is one of my favorite quarterbacks in this draft class, and I might be kind of biased when I say this because I like majority of all Virginia Tech quarterbacks except a few, and that is Gerard Evans. I think, he got a lot of slack for coming out, and I'll, raise my hand and say I was one of the people that gave him slack for coming out because, I was confused, like, yo, dude, why are you coming out? Da, 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 da. Why are you making this decision? You had one great year at Virginia Tech after coming from what was the school? What was the school that he
Trinity
came
Valley
from?
Junior College. Well, one of the top junior colleges in the nation, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, he came from a JUCO, and and he had one strong good year of college football. But it was like, dude, why are you coming out when you could stay one more year and fine tune and possibly propel yourself to another level and to become a more draftable quarterback? But you saw other guys coming out like Mr. Trubisky, which a lot of people were comparing him to. Like, yo, why is Mitch getting all this love and Gerard Evans isn't getting this love? When Mitch and him had pretty much similar records, right. And Gerard Evans took his team to the ACC championship game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people down on Gerard Evans, but I think he's gonna be a good pro, to be honest with you. And I think with the Eagles, I think he could be another guy to be. I don't even say stats on a practice squad, to be honest with you. I think he'll be. I think he'll be able to beat out Evans and Prukop. I think he'll be able to outbeat them guys in rookie minicamp. And I think, to be honest with you, I think he can give Matt McGloin a run for his money. The Eagles only signed McGloin to a one-year deal at third stringer. His job isn't necessarily safe. So maybe he beats out McGloin and earns that third spot, and then maybe becomes Carson Wentz backup in a couple of years, because Nick Foles is only on a 2-year deal too. So maybe he becomes a backup to Foles. Backup to Wentz, which you never know, which could be good for him. But think about it. It could almost be like making a reference to another Virginia Tech quarterback, the Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco situation. How Tyrod pretty much had to be the backup, but then he was able to get his shot as a starter somewhere else, learning and getting that teaching and that maturing. So maybe that works out for Jared Evans, because now he's in an organization where he's working with all quarterbacks, Doug Peterson, Frank Wright, Joe DiFilippo. He had all the minds around him. So he should be able. I'm really looking forward to see what he does over the next few weeks and few months.
Yeah, like you said, it should be an interesting competition between not only him and Prukop and Evans, but as well as Matt McGloin, also, a veteran as well. So, Gerard Evans, this is for whatever reason, the news just came out today. Eric Galko reported that he did sign with the Philadelphia Eagles right after the draft. I don't know what took so long for the news to come out, but if you ever
that's what I'm saying.
If you ever peeked at Gerard Evans' Twitter, you see his headline picture is all the quarterbacks that were drafted, and his last tweet, I think, is "I will never forget this." So he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, and I'll tell you what, I'm certainly rooting for him. Again, a lot of people kind of expected that this was a possibility for him to go undrafted. I personally thought he would, go in the 6th or 7th round.
Right, me too.
But instead, he signs an undrafted free agent deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. And with that said, Jovan, that's going to wrap up the podcast. I appreciate you, as always, for taking the time to talk some Eagles, to talk some NFL. It's always a pleasure. Before we let you go, please tell the listeners where they could check out your work at and where they could follow you on Twitter. No
problem, man. Again, I appreciate you having me on as always. We got to do this more often.
Absolutely.
We got to do this more often.
Absolutely.
It's been fun. It's been definitely fun. But people can follow me on Twitter at Jovan10. They can follow Total Sports Live on Twitter at Total Sports, like the Facebook page. Check out TotalSportsLive.com. A lot of great content on there. A lot of great stories by my great staff. They put out tons of work. Check out that stuff over there. You can also check out my random musings at Road GM this given Sunday, and also on the Philadelphia Tribune, PhillyTrib.com. So yeah, I'm all over the place. It seems like
there ain't many people out there that grind like this guy, Jovan Alford. Jovan, as always, thanks again, and keep grinding, man. I look forward to your work.
Appreciate it as always.